All right, very interesting weekend in Blue Jays land. I mean, a two-game series because one gets rained out, and a whole bunch of just rough decisions, rough games, and yet they still come out with the 1-1 series split. Lot to get into today.
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays. Thank you for making Locked On Blue Jays your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. As always, I'm Braden Iwasco. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Braden5 Iwasco, Carter First too, as well as our new channel, Twitter, Locked On Jays. As well, you can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at Locked On Jays, Locked On Blue Jays. As well, if you haven't already subscribed here on YouTube, might as well do that. If you're listening anywhere else, head over to the YouTube page, drop a subscription anyway. It does help us out, keeps us at the top of your guys' page where you guys get your news, your videos, your shorts, your podcasts, your live streams, all of it right here on the YouTube channel. Yeah, we have a lot to get into. It was a very interesting weekend with some bad choices, some interesting plays, some 1-1 series split, a game obviously being canceled on the Friday night. Yeah, and Carter, my man, we had a good weekend. The boys were buzzing a little bit, and it was a lot of fun. But still made some time. We were watching the Jays games, and we were getting a ton of texts. Just as the games are going on, there was decisions made that I just shook my head at. A couple of plays that I just shook my head at. We went to a social on Saturday night with a lot of Blue Jays fans, and everybody's asking us about Vladdy, right? Is he going to turn things on? Oh, did you see the game last night from Vladdy? The error. Did you see this from Vladdy? Did you see that? How do you think the Jays are going to do it? I feel like there's a lot of fans right now thinking this team is overperforming what they should be. Do you agree with that? Or are you sort of, where do you stand right now, I guess, as we're starting this new week?
I think right now what people are seeing is they're seeing the pitching be a top 3 rotation right now throughout baseball. You have your 2 back-end guys, which we'll go obviously in more depth into, with Jeff Hoffman, Yimi, Garcia, who have been unbelievable. So your pitching has been top-notch. And I think a lot of that is, can you rely on this pitching staff to be a top 5, top 3 rotation in baseball when they're supposed to go into the season still being a good rotation, but I don't think anyone necessarily had them as a top 5 rotation in aspirations. But no, I don't think you can be upset about what's going on right now. You look at the rest of the AL East as well. The Toronto Blue Jays are 8-7, and they're at the top of the AL East. So obviously other teams are going through some struggles as well. It's baseball. Things are going to go well. Things are going to go bad. And we had that roller coaster of emotions throughout this weekend as well. So I'm not going to be one to overreact at anything early on in the season. But one thing that we've been harping on this podcast is things to feel a whole lot different than they did last year. And last year went horrendously. Why not be optimistic about your baseball team early on, especially when things are going well early on? Again, there is nitpicking you can obviously do, but that's with any baseball team. You can ask for more hits from Vladdy. You can ask for more power. You can ask for little things. You can ask for more just clutch hitting and ask for more big innings from this baseball team. But after 8-7 with this, again, the gauntlet of the schedule that you're undergoing, I don't think you can be mad at what this baseball team is doing, but you can definitely be mad at some of the plays and some of the decisions that were being made over these last few games.
Yeah, and I mean, again, like, right, you brought up the standings, and I look at the standings, and don't get me wrong, the Yanks are right there. They're 8-7. Blue Jays are half a game up because they're 9-7. The Red Sox are sitting at 8-9. The Rays 7-8. The Orioles at 6-9. The AL East is going to be tough this year. And that's what we knew going into it. And you know what? It is what it is. The good thing is, at the end of the day, that this team is leading the AL East so far this season through 16 games. And you had the Orioles twice in there. You had the Red Sox in there, who we thought were going to be good and who very well still could be very good. You had the Mets. You've played already some pretty good teams. You're going to have more good teams to play moving forward. We will get into all that, as the Braves are next on the docket here, so we'll tee up that series in a little bit. But Carter, I mean, I don't know, man. I guess we might as well just get right into the games, because I want to start things out with Friday. That sucked. Not having a baseball game, you sort of forget, right? Because you can sort of just turn the TV on and rely on a Blue Jays game being played. And we had some boys coming over to our apartment. We were going to watch the game all together before we went out to one of our friends' socials. And yeah, we get sort of the notification right around, I think it was noon, that there would be no game, or 1 o'clock, that there would be no game. And that sucks. You sort of forget, right? It's something to have on the TV. You got the boys over, you're chatting, you're talking baseball. That sucked. But I think the worst part is you would have thought, oh, okay, well, they'll just play a doubleheader tomorrow and we can have a great night, or Sunday they'll play a doubleheader. Nope. It's all the way in July 28th. Like, it's the furthest point possible away, it seems like. So, and especially a series against the Orioles, it's already a 3-game getting turned into a 2-game. It's not great, but you know what? And you sort of want to take advantage of some of these teams early on in the season where you might be able to pick up an extra win, just them not being quite on yet. That sort of sucked, but it sort of is what it is. It's that time of the year, and that's going to happen more times than not throughout the season too. So.
Yeah, imagine not having a dome on your home field. Just couldn't be us as Toronto Blue Jays fans. Really worked out for me because I wasn't going to be able to watch the game live on Friday. So it obviously sucked for you because you had some plans with some of our friends, but I was going to be working. So it ended up working out pretty well for me because I think I will be able to watch that doubleheader in July. That is pretty far away, so things can pop up. But in the grand scheme of things, not the worst thing, especially when you were going through this road stand where you didn't have a lot of off days in between. Obviously, you don't want to have this continuing to occur because you don't want to, make up 6-7 games in June and July when you're already, in the mid-season. You're already a little bit fatigued. You don't want to be playing every single day and then multiple times a day on top of that. But I don't think this was necessarily the worst time to have a rain day for the Toronto Blue Jays and for myself in my personal life. But getting into the games that actually did happen this weekend. Before we even get into the games, I just want to go over one guy's performance throughout the weekend. Hitting wise, fine. Went 4 for 9, had 2 RBIs. But Vladimir Guerrero Jr. did not have a very good weekend whatsoever on the base paths, defensively, and especially after he signed that $500 million contract, 14 years, third highest in MLB history. A lot of the spotlight is going to be on Vladimir Guerrero Jr., which rightfully so. If you're getting $500 million to play baseball, I know he's not getting paid that right now, but this guy is going to be with the Toronto Blue Jays for a very long time. And he made a lot of misplays today over this 2-game series. The main one I think we'll talk about, we'll just jump right into it, is the Anthony Santander fly ball to right field. You have runners on first and second. Bo Bichette is at 2. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is at 1. Santander, I thought he was going to launch again. Congrats to Santander for his home run for the Toronto Blue Jays over this weekend in Camden Yards. But he hits a ball right to the warning track. The ump says Vladimir Guerrero Jr. leaves early. They appeal the first base. Adley Rutschman's on it right away. They appeal it, get the out there. It turns into a double play. The double play Blue Jays. That's the team that they were on Saturday. 5 double plays in that game. But where are you at? Is this Vladimir Guerrero Jr.'s fault? There was some stuff that came out later on that they said they were going to review it, but they didn't have a proper camera angle. They only had like an overview that was very zoomed out. And they said there just wasn't a good enough replay and a conclusive enough replay to have that call change for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. because I saw the picture of it. It looked like it was a very close play. And for the umpire to make that call, you'd think you have to be pretty confident that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. left early. But at the end of the day, it was a very deep fly ball when you're at second base. There's not going to be a play at second base. For Vladdy, take that extra half a second, take that extra second. You would have got the second base anyway. I thought it was a good move at the time. But then, of course, with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on the base paths, it never goes according to plan.
Yeah, it was just one of those frustrating ones. And I looked at the pictures, and to be honest with you, it's hard to tell. But I think at the end of the day, you're right. For the ump to make that call, he has to be pretty certain. I just don't think you call that out of nowhere. So I have to agree, sort of believe that it was, if it didn't happen, it was super, super close, and he timed it crazily. You don't take an extra half beat and make sure that you get that base. I think that this is just an absolute misplay by Vlad. And again, maybe if it's somebody else, I think, I know they're a good base runner, so they're probably right. But Vlad's a notorious not great base runner, so I tend to believe the ump on this one. I can't really argue it. And just a bad play. It was sort of that on top of everything else that it was going on in the game with Vlad as well. It was just things started to pile up, right? Like Bo Bichette makes a great play in the hole, throws it to Vlad, and you think, oh my God, like you're finally starting to see that spark, that defensive spark from Bo Bichette, and he makes this great play, and Vlad just straight up drops the ball. He goes into a full splits for I don't really know the reason, and just drops the ball. At first, I thought it was a one hop, and that's why he didn't come up with it, but it didn't. He just didn't close the glove in time, and so it's that on top of the base running, on top of everything else. It just wasn't a good day for Vlad.
He had one earlier on to a Jackson Holiday ball where he probably could have had it, gets handcuffed, ends up being a double for the Baltimore Orioles. Another play there. He had a scoop later on in the game. I'm not going to give him as much trouble for that one because scoops are tough. It was a tougher play. That Bo Bichette play was so frustrating in the moment. When people still aren't giving Bo Bichette credit, I think he's been very good defensively. Again, obviously he makes that error on Sunday. That's not great. But that does happen as a shortstop. I think Bo Bichette's been very good defensively, and he makes a great play there, as you said. And Vladimir Guerrero Jr., I've never seen a first baseman just miss baseballs so often. It isn't the first time this happened with Vladimir Guerrero Jr. It's not like the ball hit the dirt. The ball is in the air. You're getting paid $500,000 or $500 million. It doesn't even, that doesn't even matter. You're in the MLB. You're a Major League Baseball player. You should be able to catch a baseball that is thrown in the air to you. So just, again, not a very good weekend whatsoever from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. But unfortunately, that is a little bit of the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. experience. You're paying for that bat. You're paying for the premium power. You're going to have some base running errors. You're going to have some defensive lapses. It's all a part of the game, but definitely sucks when it all piles up on top of each other in like short innings succession.
Yeah, that was sort of my issue, right? Because then, we have one buddy that I swear to God, he loves to hate this team. It's his favorite team, and he loves to hate them. And the first Vlad play happens, and we check our phones, and yeah, sure enough, we get a text. But then, we see him at the social the next night, and it's hard to argue with him because it's like, yeah, he did just make 3 sort of bonehead plays, and again, as baseball players, you go through peaks and valleys here. As long as he bounces back, I'm fine. But it does get frustrating after so long of me being the hoorah guy for Vlad, and then he goes out and makes mistakes, and you're paying this guy all this money. But again, I don't want to harp on the negativity around Vlad for too long because again, this is a 1-1 series split weekend. You like where you're standing so far, and we don't need to push negativity, but at the same point, we got to talk about the stuff that changes the momentum of games, changes the outcome of games. So that was one of them for sure. There was just a few things this weekend that just felt like it wasn't going the Blue Jays' way, one way or the other. And Carter, I mean, we still got a ton to get into. Game 2 was absolutely bonkers with everything that was happening in that game. But do you have anything else from game 1 before I know we got a lot to dive into in game 2 here because that one was wild.
Just one more quick thing just about the pitching. Bowden Francis just doing the thing that he just seems to always do. This one I think was in the 5th inning. He carries that no-hitter into the 5th inning and like clockwork gives up a home run to end the no-hit bid. But that's not even what I want to talk about. It's kind of how he continued to pitch into that 6th inning. So you have Bowden Francis just gives up a solo shot to Adley Rutschman, walks Ryan O'Hearn right after that. It is a 3-3 baseball game. You're through 5 2/3 innings. For me, again, with the John Schneider decision-making, I think you have to take Bowden Francis out here. You just give up that solo shot. Again, you lose a little bit of that command to Ryan O'Hearn. Even if you get pitched against Jordan Westburg, ended up being an infield single. At that point, another chance to get this guy out of the game. I thought he was starting to lose it a little bit there. You had that off day on Friday. Now you didn't have your players playing. You had everyone at your bullpen in your disposal. It didn't really make a whole lot of sense for me why you're keeping Bowden Francis in that game. And then obviously gives up a few more runs, which end up costing the Toronto Blue Jays that Saturday game.
Yeah, and that's part of it, right? Like we always talk about John Schneider's decision-making and when to do what. And I just feel like every time we have the conversation, and we were watching that game together, Carter, and we both said, like looked at each other and said, it's time to get this guy out of here. He's done. You can see it. And it seems like every time that John Schneider makes a decision, it's not the decision we would make. And again, that's that's pretty easy to say sitting on my, reclining chair at home and, a beer in hand. But it when it becomes a multiple time thing or all the time thing that this is happening, you do tend to start being a little frustrated. So at the end of the day, I don't know. I just don't know how many more times we got to go through this with John Schneider before he clues in. And again, people are going to make mistakes. It's early in the season. But yeah, I don't know. Frustration, that's for sure. Anyway, we want to get into game 2. There's more important things to talk about than, the managerial decision of this game or the next game or whatever. We got to talk about the players because there was some bonehead decisions by players. It was a good win, a gritty win from some guys, but still a lot to talk about because these games, what I find is there's a million storylines through every single game. And it's like we almost have to do this podcast 7 days a week during the season. It's so crazy. We'll be right back with some more.
Today's episode is sponsored by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each one out serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help you keep feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. Now, whether I'm just out on the go with my friends, even if I'm sitting watching a movie, sitting watching the Jays game, my convenient go-to snack has become Wonderful Pistachios. The salty, the sweetness, all the mixture that goes into that. So many different options and very satiating and very convenient where you don't want to make a big meal. Another great point about Wonderful Pistachios is that they are complete protein and they provide all 9 essential amino acids. Get snacking and get cracking with the snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more. That's wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
All right, so we got to talk about game 2, right? Game 2 was the big one. This was a must-win game for the Toronto Blue Jays because you don't want to go after getting, a 2-game series, your 3-game series turned into a 2-game, and then go out and drop an egg. So this was a massive game. And to be honest with you, Carter, throughout all of this game, I didn't feel like they had it throughout the entire game. And the boys put it together and got the job done. We got to talk about Hoffman, man. He's an absolute dog. But a lot more to get into, and I don't necessarily want to start with that. Where do you want to pick things up here? Because you could go in eight different directions.
I'm going to pick this up in the 5th inning because I think this was the most mad that I've been the entire weekend. Honestly, the entire season when we're talking about the Toronto Blue Jays. And it's the George Springer at bat in the top of the 5th inning. You have a big spot in the game. You have Bo Bichette on base. You have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on base as well. You're down in the game. You want a massive hit here from George Springer. He's up 1-0 in the count. He has a strike where he swings. Brian Baker's in the game. Right there, grimacing, grabbing his left wrist. George Springer ended up leaving the game with that left wrist injury, but continued on with that at-bat. Jose Minestrol. And then they're looking at his wrist. John Schneider's out there with Minestrol. Springer is trying to grip Minestrol's wrist, and it looks like he is barely even touching it. It looks like he's just resting his fingers over his wrists. And when you're George Springer, you're a veteran in the league, you're probably not going to remove yourself from that situation unless he broke his arm, he broke his elbow or something. It'd have to be a very massive injury. If it's just a little bit of a strain or a little bit of pain, George Springer, being the vet that he is and having the season that he's having, he's not going to be the one that takes himself out of that situation. But if you're Jose Minestrol, if you're John Schneider, both of you should be able to see this situation and see that, hey, George Springer clearly is not ready to finish out this at-bat, especially with it being a big situation in the game and not just taking the situation in the game out of it. You have this injury. If you continue to play with it, it might just make it even worse. We saw with Max Scherzer with the thumb injury. He took himself out before something bigger happened. And it looks like we avoided something major with George Springer here. But if you're already hurt and you can't perform up to those expectations and you can't have that quality at bat that you're accustomed to, I don't know why you're necessarily just putting yourself through that. And Brian Baker and the Orioles clearly knew that George Springer was not ready to undergo that at bat. Because what did they do after that? They threw him 3 straight high fastballs. And George Springer's pretty much swinging with one hand. You can't really do much if you're swinging with one hand with a 98-mile-an-hour fastball out the top of the zone. And then obviously George Springer ends up striking out and then grimaces and runs into the dugout after that strike 3 call. So clearly, again, tweaked it a little bit worse. Just that whole thing just left a very bad taste in my mouth from everyone involved.
Carter, I'm not going to lie to you. There's one person that I blame for this, and that's George Springer. I felt the exact same way. I was disgusted by what took place on that diamond yesterday, and it is George Springer's fault. The 100% of the time, you said he was a veteran, and he won't leave that situation. As a veteran player, who knows your body better than yourself? You do. We've had this conversation with other guys when the Max Scherzer came up. You know yourself better than anybody. That's not on John Schneider to make that decision. That's not on Jose to make that decision. That is on George Springer to say, hey, I cannot hold my bat, and I'm going to injure this worse. This is a guy that's played a long time in this league. You have to know to take yourself out of that situation because you're not only going to hurt yourself further, you're now putting your team at a disadvantage in a big situation, in a game that you want to win. and have the opportunity to get back into. Terrible decision made by George Springer, and he then suffered for it because then he ran into the dugout anyway. Pull yourself out of that. Give somebody off the bench. Yeah, you know what? You might be screwed anyway. It's a 1-1 count. Somebody coming in off the bench. You might be screwed. But I would much rather take somebody else than an injured George Springer swinging at a baseball, holding back because he is going to hurt himself. And he then went and hurt himself. So this is, for a veteran guy to do this, and I've loved George Springer this season. That can't happen. That's ridiculous, Carter. I'm about over that, and I was pretty disappointed with how George Springer handled himself in that situation.
Yeah, I think that's definitely fair. I think if you're George Springer, at the end of the day, like the goal is to win. And if you're George Springer and you know that you're not fully ready and you can't, provide good swings at the plate, especially when you have two runners in scoring position, you got to be a veteran. You got to take yourself for the betterment of the team. You got to take yourself out of that game. But I think you still have to give a little bit of you still have to hold John Schneider accountable in the situation as well, because you're the manager of your baseball team. You're at the end of the day the one that is making that decision. You got to know your players as well. So I think you're right. I think you do have to blame George Springer a little bit for this as well. But I think that's the whole point of the athletic trainer. That's the whole point of the coach going out there. They're going to check if this guy's okay, and you can tell that something was clearly off. You tell that something was clearly off from the TV screen, and we're not even in the same province as those guys. They're not, well, obviously they were playing in Camden or in Baltimore at Camden Yards, but yeah, we're not even in the same country. And we could see that George Springer was clearly not comfortable at the plate. So I think everyone involved, you've got to be able to see that and make that decision for the betterment of the team. But let's go on to something that is a lot more positive. The guy that has been just one of the greatest things to watch this season, and it has been Jeff Hoffman. I don't know what more to say about this guy. Like, it's just absolutely ridiculous every single time he goes out onto the mound. And again, doing it in multiple innings, saving the Toronto Blue Jays series and saving the Toronto Blue Jays weekend. Thank you to the Baltimore Orioles doctors for, not having faith in Jeff Hoffman's shoulder whatsoever. Because now you have Andrew Ketteridge, who is on the IL, and we have Jeff Hoffman, who is getting save after save after save, blowing the doors off of Baltimore Orioles hitters. Feels really good to have this sounding right now.
And not only was he blowing the doors off the Baltimore Orioles, he was also blowing them a kiss, which was amazing as well. Hoffman says, well, you didn't want me, so here I am. And they asked Miles Straw about the Hoffman's performance post-game, and Hoffman says, I don't care what Jeff Hoffman does. If he keeps pitching like this, or Miles Straw, sorry.
Yeah.
He says, I don't care what Jeff Hoffman does. If he's pitching like that, he can do whatever he wants to do. And I absolutely love that because the guy is having an absolutely electric start to the year. He goes out onto the mound, and I'm never worried. I'm never concerned. I know exactly what I'm going to get. And it's Jeff Hoffman just at his best. This was a series he wanted to pitch in. He wanted to show these guys that whatever they saw on those MRIs was pretty off. And he did just that, Carter.
Yeah, absolutely love to see it because, again, we don't mean to throw shade on Jordan Romano, but there's no way Jordan Romano's going out back-to-back innings as a two-pitch pitcher, inheriting a runner on second. Jordan Romano experience and the Jeff Hoffman experience is completely different. They did both kind of get the job done, but Jeff Hoffman is doing it with very minimal stress, whereas Jordan Romano did have some pretty good underlying numbers. But, when you're in that game, your heart is beating out of your chest, and you were very worried that Jordan Romano is going to absolutely blow the game. But I do have some quotes from Jeff Hoffman about some of the start, just about his usage throughout the first couple of weeks. We have seen him pitch multiple innings. We've seen him pitch in back-to-back outings. So this is from Ben Nicholson-Smith. He asked Jeff Hoffman how throwing 2 innings twice this week was. Jeff Hoffman said, good, normal, recovering well. I'll be recovering on the plane and hopefully ready to go for tomorrow. So clearly this guy's just juiced up, ready to go. He's going to pitch him 7 times in a row. Who cares? If he's ready to go. He doesn't need the rest. He is fully recovered, obviously, from that shoulder injury. And this is from the Baltimore Sun here. Jeff Hoffman goes, when I'm thinking about the games before the games are being played and stuff, yeah, obviously that's definitely in my head. And this is about the Baltimore Orioles and that blowing the kiss situation. That's definitely in my head. But once I'm in the game, I'm in the moment and I'm focused on making those pitches. If you get started thinking about all that stuff while you're out there, things tend to not go well. So I did my best to stay in the moment and just try to make the next pitch and get my team back into the dugout. And then I saw that Miles Straw comment. You obviously brought it up as well. If you didn't already like Miles Straw, you gotta like him now. Again, this guy, people were saying Miles Straw was supposed to start, people had him in AA. I had him, honestly, in AAA to start the season. Obviously, we're not learning a lot about Miles Straw last season with the Guardians. He was in AAA throughout that entire season. Didn't even really play in the MLB in 2024. So very pleasant surprise from Miles Straw. Just want to throw him in there with this Jeff Hoffman stuff. But Miles Straw, Jeff Hoffman, a lot of dogs for the Toronto Blue Jays, and you absolutely love to see it early on.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Watching the post games and seeing all the comments that come out after, guys talking about each other, it's always nice, right? Especially after a win. And you have Jeff Hoffman, who's, like we've said, an absolute dog. I think it's easy to be pumped up as a teammate of his. So that was great to see. Carter, we did some positives. Again, I'm gonna hammer this home. The Blue Jays got the win, a series split. We'll take that. That's great. What in the world was Nathan Lucas doing? I got to bring it back to negatives here a little bit. Before we get into the series preview, you said you don't know if you've ever been that angry before at your TV during the George Springer situation. That's how I felt with the Nathan Lucas situation getting thrown out as well. So I don't know. Were you just as mad as I was, or were you just more confused of what was going on?
Yeah, you obviously don't love the play, especially when you have Will Wagner up. And like the Will Wagner, like if he's getting out, he's a big contact guy, obviously. The Will Wagner out would have been the ground ball to second base, which in turn would get Nathan Lucas to third base. In that situation, there's no reason for you to be leading off that handedly. Again, there's no outs. You're a runner on second. Anthony Santander, obviously, a nice double. But I just don't understand how you kind of put yourself in that situation. I know you're trying to score, obviously, on a single, and that's probably the sentiment that's in his head. You want to get that extra secondary lead, and you want to get that lead so you can score if there's a ball into the outfield. But that can't feel very good, getting that back pick. And then at that point, you have to take off the third. So I understand why you did that, but just not a very good play from Nathan Lucas, especially when you got Daulton Varsho coming back, and there's going to have to be a roster move. And it's either going to be Nathan Lucas, a guy that doesn't have options. David Schneider, Miles Straw might be thrown in there. But right now, you're playing for your major league playing time, and that's not exactly what you want to do with a Daulton Varsho coming back on the horizon.
No, and don't get me wrong. On that play, it looks like Will Wagner might drop down a bunt, pulls back on the bunt. And so maybe he's thinking if Will Wagner lays that down, he's got to gun it to 3. And that's fine. But you're supposed to be one of our better base runners. That we put you out there, you got that, you're doing that, and we need you. And that was could have been a big moment in this game that we look back on and been even more angry if the Blue Jays didn't pull that win out. So at the end of the day, great. It was great they got the win. It was just a play that I was just very frustrated with. All the base running stuff that we've seen over this weekend, I was just about done. I was like very close to turning my TV off at that point with everything that happened that game, everything that happened the game before with Vlad. But they pull it out and they get the win. So I'm going to end the negativity there. Carter, we do have a series to preview that we got to get into. We got to talk about because it's a big one. It's an interesting one. So I think let's take a quick break. We'll come back. Then we'll tee up this series moving forward with the Toronto Blue Jays 9-7 to start the season. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is also sponsored by Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts of investments and spending all in one place so you can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. I know Braden has this massive problem where he just cannot stop buying Toronto Blue Jays hats or just hats in general. I think he has like 16 Jays hats that we counted. If he had Monarch Money, he'd realize, hey, I'm spending, half of my bank account on these hats. Probably reallocate some of this income to another place. Monarch Money would allow him to do that. I had a little bit of a problem moving out into a city. I used to live in a small town with ordering out. Monarch Money would have made it a lot easier for me to kind of, nip that spending problem in the butt and get ahead of it early. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money and use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year.
Today's episode brought to you by Farm to Fork. Farm to Fork is amazing. They started out the Locked On Sens boys used Farm to Fork all the time. They were a big sponsor for them, and they decided, hey, you know what? Let's keep it in the province of Ontario. Let's go over as well to Locked On Blue Jays, and they are the best. If you're a fan of premium, locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door, I've got some exciting news. Farm to Fork makes it easy to get high-quality steaks, air-chilled chicken, wild-caught seafood, and more, all with no antibiotics, hormones, GMOs, plus everything comes fresh, flash frozen and individually packaged for your convenience. All Farm to Fork meats are raised in Canada farms. So when you order, you're supporting local producers, it's time to buy Canadian. We can't hit that home enough, being the one Canadian team in the MLB. Make sure you guys do support local, support Canadian. They're delivered all across Ontario and Western Quebec. And the best part, delivery is free with a minimum order of $199. You don't even have to leave the house to get this quality. That's something I love. I love just being able to order my food, and this is unbelievable. I can't stand going and getting some garbage from the Walmart or whatever. Get it from farm to fork. I've got a special code just for you. Use Locked On 40 to get $40 off your first order at Farm to Fork. Visit farm2forkdelivery.ca to start stocking up on the best meats around. Again, that's Locked On 40 for $40 off your first order. Farm to Fork, delicious, locally farmed meats delivered straight to your door. So, Carter, a series to tee up. The Blue Jays facing the Atlanta Braves in a 3-game series. I'm pretty pumped up about this one. We're not seeing the Atlanta Braves at their best currently, but they are a team that can do damage, and eventually we'll figure things out. And to the best of my knowledge, it will be the Toronto Blue Jays series that this Atlanta Brave team starts to put everything together. Are you a little bit nervous about this one?
It's always going to be nervous playing a roster like the Atlanta Braves do have. And the Toronto Blue Jays do get a little bit lucky here where they avoid Ronald Acuna Jr. But unfortunately, we do get the Spencer Strider start. But I guess fortunately, it is his first start of the season. So you can't expect him to, go 8 innings. He's probably going to throw 4 to 5. So then that benefits the Toronto Blue Jays a little bit. But yeah, it's definitely never fun playing a team like that, like the Los Angeles Dodgers, the Atlanta Braves. I shouldn't say it's any fun. It's definitely nerve-wracking playing those teams because you know how good they are and you know how much talent they do have on those rosters. But going over the pitching matchups, this will be another big test for a guy that is becoming our Yusei Kikuchi of this year. Easton Lucas going against Grant Holmes on the Monday game. For the Tuesday game, Spencer Schwellenbach, who has had a very good start to the year, picking up where he left off from last year, but it's against Kevin Gausman, our ace. That should be a very good pitching matchup. And then you do have that Spencer Strider start on the Wednesday. He will make his season debut against the Toronto Blue Jays. And the Toronto Blue Jays have Chris Bassitt coming off of a very good start, and just a very good start to the season, obviously, for Chris Bassitt as well. So the pitching matchups, pretty good pitchers all around for the most part. I'd say the first game is a little bit more volatile, might get a little bit more run scoring there, but those second 2 games definitely going to be a big series for Toronto, returning to the Rogers Center to play the Atlanta Braves. But before we kind of go into the more of the series preview and the more of the series predictions, I just wanted to go over the George Springer injury update. I briefly talked about it, but I just wanted to make sure you guys knew what was going on with George Springer. It did not look good in the moment. We thought it was going to be a lot more serious than it was, but it's from Arden Zwelling. X-rays on Springer's wrist have returned as negative. Blue Jays are considering him as day-to-day. Definitely a nice thing to see, again, after how bad it did look on the field. And just the start that George Springer has had. You don't want this guy off the field for too long when he was leading the league in batting average, having one of the best starts, honestly, to his career of a season. But, Braden, going back to the Atlanta Braves series, what are your expectations? Which games are you looking to win? Do you want a Toronto Blue Jays? Obviously, you want a Toronto Blue Jays series win. Is that where you're expecting? Where are you expecting Toronto Blue Jays to fall this week?
No, you know what? I have to say a Blue Jays win, even though maybe in my heart of hearts, I don't sometimes believe that. This might be one of them. I'm going to say 2-1 Jays. But I am worried. This is one of those ones that, it's again, a team that hasn't started the season off on the right foot, and they're a team that will pick up eventually. So I'm just hoping and praying that it's not this week, but you got to beat good teams to be a good team. So you know what? It's time for the Blue Jays to prove it. You got Santander's first home run out of the way. Hopefully he can get one this series as well. Hopefully we can see Vlad's first home run as well. So I'm going game 1 and game 3 as the 2 wins, Carter. I'm going to say Gauzy doesn't get the help, and Schwellenbach just has a nice day as well.
See, I'm a little bit nervous for the first game. I know Easton Lucas has been a beauty on the mound throughout his first 2 starts, but you got a really good Atlanta Braves lineup. I don't care that they're 4-11. I don't care that they're coming off a series loss to the Tampa Bay Rays. It's Easton Lucas making his 3rd major league start against a gauntlet of a lineup. That's going to be, it's still a little bit of nerves into me. And the Toronto Blue Jays haven't gotten this long ball. I know you get a home run from Alejandro Kirk, first home run of the year. Finally, actually getting a little bit of production from Kirk was nice to see. Santander. You expect the home runs to come, but again, how long can you wait, especially when you're playing good baseball teams? I I'm going to do it for the first time of the year. I got a bad feeling about the series. I have a series loss for the Toronto Blue Jays. I hate doing this, but I do have to be realistic. You can't win every single series of the year. I do think it's going to be a competitive series, but I think the offense is going to let us down a little bit here once again. And yes, the Schwellenbach, I agree with you. I don't think they're going to get to him whatsoever. And I am a little bit worried about that Easton Lucas start. But hopefully I am proved wrong. I've definitely been wrong on this podcast before. And at the end of the day, if they sweep the series, I will be loving that. And I'll be happily wrong about my take.
Yeah, no, it's all good. That's sort of the feeling I had as well, but I just didn't want to say it. Here we are. Another series to go, another series down. Hopefully this team can continue to play well, stay above the 500 mark. That's our goal, at least to start. That's where we got to be. And then hopefully they can start putting together wins when, we sort of start to get through this rough stretch of the schedule. A lot of baseball to come this week. We're going to continue to put out these podcasts Monday to Friday. Hopefully you guys tune in. Me and Carter are actually going to run a tryout back at our high school on Thursday. So we're going to have a ton of fun there. Hopefully some of the boys, we can see some good things from them. We are pretty pumped up. We got another one of our friends' social Thursday. It is going to be a fun weekend for us. A lot of Jays baseball, a lot of Jays talk. Stay tuned, stay locked here. I have to, Carter, I got to get a drink into me or something. I just realized I didn't have a water and my throat. I'm still a little under the weather. I know you were feeling it pretty good too this weekend, but you battled through. So good on you. Anything else before we kick out of here for the day?
Just a couple of congratulations I want to throw out. We're at a wedding social this weekend. Congratulations to Harry and Sydney. Very obviously great time we had over there. Congratulations to my boy, the Earn Dog, 4 for 5. Are you kidding me? You were writing this guy off a little bit. You were starting to say, hey, what's going on with Ernie? He responds to the 4 for 5 performance. And the last one, I'm just going to throw this one up for Mr. Powers. His first silent auction win gets a little bit of a Jets prize.
Awesome.
He was pretty fired up about that, and I was fired up for him. But other than that, thank you guys for watching. The likes, comments, all the support recently has been much appreciated. Continuing on with the journey, the roller coaster of the Toronto Blue Jays. Right now at the top of the AL East. Hopefully they can stay there after this series. Thank you guys for watching, and we will talk to you guys again tomorrow.